What's up, good people, and welcome to yet another episode of the Verified Podcast. This is your girl, Gabby. If you're new to this, welcome. This is where we talk about how verified we are, because we understand that unlike our social media accounts, we don't require the sticker by our names to tell us who we are. We don't require the accolades or the attention, because each and every day of our lives, we're striving to become the very best version of ourselves. So on this podcast, we talk a little bit about fitness, we talk about God, and we talk about how we're going to get to the next level and how we're just going to level up. So let's go ahead and jump straight into today's episode. So if you follow me on Instagram, last week I took a voting poll. You know, Instagram has all of these cool little things that you can add to your stories now. So last week I took a poll and I wanted to know what my audience looked like. So a majority of you are entrepreneurs or either career women. And so I wanted to do that because I wanted to know who you guys were, and I wanted to know a little bit about what you guys were working on, along with some fitness questions that I asked. And so with the majority of us being entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of us are probably, if we're not full-blown entrepreneurs, then we are in that building stage. And so that's actually where today's topic is going to come from. It's going to come from us being in that building stage. And this is a question that I challenged myself to answer for myself this week. And that question is, what do you do when God's plan for your business or for your life is larger than your pockets? Or we can even switch this around and say, as it pertains to your fitness goals, what do you do when you have been working toward a goal for so long, for weeks, for years, yet you still haven't achieved that goal for your fitness? What do you do when you get to that place of where you hit a plateau of where it seems that you were gaining some traction in the beginning, and now it seems like you're at this point of where you're not growing, where you're not going down, but you're at this plateau, you're just at this even place of where nothing is changing? What do you do? Because let's be honest, those times happen, and those times are very common, especially when you are in a fitness journey, and even when you are in your journey of building a business. Those things are very common. It's common for you to hit this place of stagnation, of where you feel like nothing is changing. And so I want to speak to that on today, and I want to give you guys some tips about how you can get out of that stage of where you feel like you're at a plateau of where you're not growing, but that you just feel like God has you at this holding place. Because I can personally speak to that from my own personal life. I feel like there have been points not only in my fitness journey, but also in my business, of where God has helped me at this holding place. And so I want you to consider this question. And that question is simply this: are you following instruction? So I have my core clients, and some of them I have been working with for almost a year now. And some of them have seen extremely great results, and some of them have not. And so for those of them who have not seen the type of results that they want to see, they become extremely frustrated. I don't think they become frustrated at me, but they become frustrated at the process. And so when they get frustrated and they come into our session and they're just like, I'm just not seeing it, I'm not getting it. My first question as a trainer is, what did I tell you to do last time, and have you followed through? Because a lot of times, what happens is that, we can be given homework. Like for me, I give my clients homework. So I give them exercises to do when we're not meeting. I give them cardio that they should be doing, especially if it's a weight loss client. And so my first question is, did you make time to come to the gym? And how have your eating habits been outside of us talking? Because I know as a trainer that time and eating habits can be some of the major setbacks as to why you're not seeing the type of results you want to see. Have you been putting in the time? Have you been pushing your plate back, or not even pushing your plate back? Because I don't like to teach restrictive dieting. I don't like to teach dieting at all. I like to just teach changing and creating a healthy lifestyle for yourself, something that's going to be super attainable and super reasonable for you, but have you been doing the things that I told you to do? And so I think that when we're not seeing the type of results that we want to see, a lot of it goes back to, are we following instruction? Are we doing the last thing that God told us to do? Or are we just out here kind of trying to do things willy-nilly, trying to just get by, and not thinking that our trainer, or not thinking that God is going to see that, that we're not following through. So when that happens, we can't really go back and complain because we haven't done what we were told to do in the first place. So number one, I think that whenever you're building something, or whenever you're starting a workout plan, or maybe you're just getting into working out, I think that before any of that happens, that it's so important that you be super realistic with yourself so that you can hold yourself accountable. And I'll give you an example. If you are someone who hasn't worked out in, let's say, 3 years, it's super unrealistic for you to think that you're going to get into the gym and be able to run 10 miles when you haven't worked out for so long. It's so important that you set a realistic goal for yourself, something that's going to be really achievable for you in the beginning. And then the longer you go, the more you build up your stamina, then you start to set more difficult goals, still realistic goals, but maybe you can kind of increase the amount of time that you're running. So it's super important that as you are building or starting your workout plan, that you be realistic with yourself. Number two, start with where you are. And I don't know about you, but I've heard this a lot, and I couldn't really receive it until I found myself in that position. But I think whenever we look at social media, I think that whenever we look at fitness influencers or someone who has a business that we maybe aspire to have, I think that it's super easy to get caught up in what they have shown us and not understanding what it's taking for them on the back end to build that up. And so I want you to understand that it's so important that you start with where you are. Start at your fitness level. Start at your level of grind of whatever that looks like, because this is what happens, is that when you see a lot of people posting all of these fitness videos and you're attempting to do them, you're not understanding that these people have been practicing these workouts for years. They have perfected that workout. And so it's so easy for us to get drugged into like the praise of that person, the praise of what they're doing because it looks good what they're doing, not understanding that you might not have the same training technique as them. You might not have the same movement or mobility as them. And so it's so important that you start with where you are. And this is just a quick plug, but I have created an online program for people who are just starting out on their fitness journeys, and it's all online. And if you're interested in something like that, I think that it would be really useful for you. But I'm teaching you how to move correctly, because for me as a trainer, it's more important for you to reach your goals without injury versus you doing all of these super dynamic moves and you end up injuring yourself because there aren't eyes on you. You don't have like a personal trainer there in your house to actually watch you do the movements. And so they're really good workouts, but they are all home workouts, and they really push you to the point of where maybe you feel comfortable with doing some more dynamic things. But yeah, that's just like a little plug. But yeah, just make sure that you are starting where you're comfortable with. Don't get drugged into this social media craze of where you feel like you have to do this type of exercise to get the type of results that you want. That's just not the case. And this is the last thing I want to say, and this is be tip number 3. But make sure that you are staying in close connection with God, and that you're making sure that you are doing the very last thing that you were told to do. And this can be super difficult, especially if you have a head full of ideas like me. It can be super easy to try and move ahead of God, to try and do things in your own will. But I think that that's why God made us so dependent on him, because he knew that we would do that, but he also has a way of bringing us back. And I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, but if you don't want to do it twice, do it right the first time. And so basically what I'm saying is that whenever you're reaching for something, if you're building something, if you're working towards your fitness goals, don't go into it halfway doing it. There are so many people who are on these fad diets. And the thing about fad diets is that they are fads and they are temporary. And whenever you do something temporarily, it's going to come back to you tenfold, 20-fold. And so make sure that if you're doing something, do it for the lifestyle change and for you to become better, not to do it because it's something temporary and something that you want to just achieve for a moment's time. Do it because it's something that you have a heart to do and you actually want to see yourself become the very best version of yourself. All right, guys, that wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Again, make sure that you guys are following me on my social media, chiseled_curves, and that's on Instagram. Also, I am going to place the link for my online personal training program if you are interested. And I did say earlier that it's for a beginning level, but it's actually for all levels of fitness. And with that comes a plethora of great things, and I'm going to leave that in the description box. But today's episode is actually going to be a little bit longer because I earlier this week, this entire week, I have just been spending a lot of time with God in my building stage, and because I want to make sure that I'm doing things in His timing and I'm doing things the way that He desires for me to do that. So I got a word from Him, and I really want to share it with you as you're going through your building stage, because I believe that this word is just not only for me, but it's for a lot of us kingdom builders who are trying to do something different, yet we feel like we just can't find our place. And so I think that this is a really good thing for you and something for you to think about and something for you to apply to your life. So if you guys have any questions that you really want me to answer here on the podcast, I know I didn't really talk a lot about workouts today or whatever the case may be. If you have any of those questions, please shoot me a DM on Instagram. And again, my Instagram handle is chiseled_curves, and I'll make sure to answer some of those questions for you. All right, guys, I'll be honest with you. The track will not play back, so I'm just going to re-record it. So like I said earlier, I have been this week being extremely intentional about spending more time with God, and I started a new plan on my Bible app of where I am going through the entire Bible, and that has been pretty fun in itself, and I've been being intentional about journaling as well. And so one of the things that has been brought to my attention is that, with us living in this social media driven world, it can be easy for us as Christians and for lovers of God to try and fit into the mold when God has called for us to stand out. And so that has been my challenge this week, is to get over the fear of being different. We were never called to be the same as other people. We're not called to operate as other people. We're not called to operate our business the same way that the world does. And so what I am challenging not only myself to do, but you to do as well, that is to get comfortable with not being comfortable and to get comfortable with not being accepted by everyone. And this is the thing about when you decide to live a life that's truly sold out to God, is that you won't be accepted by everyone. There are certain people that God has called you to. So I believe that when we get comfortable with who God has called us to be and understand that we're not called to fit into a box and we're not called to every single person on this earth, that's when God can begin to move and He can begin to show you who you are called to and who is called to you. Because the people who are called to you, they will be able to receive whatever you have for them in a way that people who are not called to you cannot. And so I just want you to take that with you this week and understand that you are not called to fit in. I know that you're trying to fit in. I know that you're trying to build a business the same way that someone else did, but that's not how God is calling for you to do it. He's calling for you to do it different because you are a kingdom builder. So that's all, guys, and I will see you guys next week. Love you.